We are live. 3, 2, 1, live. Welcome back to Bitcoin Generations, where we discuss lots of things about Bitcoin for baby boomers and new Bitcoiners. And we have Logan today. Logan, how are you?
Hey, doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Thanks. Got my uniform on for my, I don't know if you noticed my hat at all. Anyway, I'm digging it. I've also got some new digs in the back here. I've put some new stuff up on the walls.
I think it's good, man. It's a good change up.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on today. I think we got our audio figured out. We got our video figured out, and I just wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about today, ask you some questions about um, Bitcoin nodes, relays, VPNs. Oh my, it's kind of a little bit scary. So if you could, let's just jump right into it and help us. I'm going to ask you some very pleb basic type questions. So let's just start in. And what's a Bitcoin node?
I would say a Bitcoin node is a computer, and not a specialized computer. It should be a very simple computer. So you could think of a laptop that could be a Bitcoin node. You could think of maybe you've heard of Raspberry Pi. It's like a small handheld computer about the size of a credit card.
Okay.
Those can be Bitcoin nodes. Really, any computer necessarily. So whether it's off the shelf or whether it's special made, any computer can be a Bitcoin node.
Okay. So if let's just say it could be any computer, it could be a Bitcoin node. What does a Bitcoin node do, and why is it important to have a node?
I would say that it's important to have a node because if you don't have one, you've never actually used Bitcoin. You've just been asking someone else to use Bitcoin for you. So when you run a node, you have a copy of the entire ledger. And when you have that copy of the whole ledger, you can submit transactions to it. So that would be moving Bitcoin between wallets, for instance, or sending and receiving Bitcoin. And this is permissionless. So without asking anyone to do so, you can, on your computer, you can run the Bitcoin software and you can submit transactions permissionlessly.
Okay. So, all right. So if you run the entire ledger, you say the ledger. So a ledger is all of the blocks in the blockchain, right?
Yeah, it's the history of the movement of Bitcoin. So
Okay.
every Bitcoin has to be accounted for in order to be valid. So that's how you collect that status of whether or not it's true or not, is you download the entire copy of the blockchain, which right now is a little over 800 gigabytes.
Okay. And just so we know, how many nodes are there in the world that run this Bitcoin blockchain? I mean, approximately.
I have no clue. There's a difference between nodes that you can see on the open internet and then nodes that are hidden behind a private service like Tor. So that difference makes it hard to completely get that number accurate.
Okay.
It's over 13 or over 13,000 on the ClearNet side. So the ones that we can see. And then the ones that are on Tor are over 20,000 are on that Tor network.
Okay. So when they talk about the nodes, is it something where the decentralization of Bitcoin is more decentralized the more nodes that are run?
It's more the more people that use it is the more that decide on its use. So similar to the dollar, the more people that use the dollar, the more people support its use. And so by running a node, you are doing more than just holding a private key and submitting to the transaction set. We'll call it. We've been using that word transaction, so I want to stay on that word, because if you're holding your private key, you sent Bitcoin to yourself.
Okay.
You've sent it to a wallet that you own, and so that first step is typically owning your private key, taking custody of your Bitcoin. That requires having a node in order to make that transaction happen. So if you own your private key and you have your sats, in your cold storage, you haven't necessarily used Bitcoin before if you don't run a node.
Okay. All right. I want to shout out to everybody who drinks coffee. You're going to see something very tasty enter my orbit right now.
There you go. You got to hit mute when you sip it, or else I'm going to get jealous. So, no, I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that.
That's easier said than done right now.
All right, sounds good. So hit mute. You want me to hit mute?
No, we're good. We're good. I think we have. I think we were supposed to do a recorded session that we were going to go live later with, but we already have some viewers, so I think we're actually live. So there we go. Oh, I think your audio, something happened there, sir.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to mute. My kids just got home from school, so
Oh, perfect.
they're kind of loud in the background. I'm trying to go back and forth. He's not going to mute when he sips his coffee, though. He's just going to keep.
Nope. You're going to get the live sip of coffee. We are real people. We are not AI, and we do actually have children that come home from school. So there's that. So this is a very interesting conversation, though. I love this because I'm learning about nodes as well as a lot of other things from Logan. And what I would actually ask you is, there's another thing that Bitcoin Mechanic has mentioned about nodes, and he has suggested running a listening node as opposed to a non-listening node. Can you help me understand that?
I think what he's talking about there is that you have the ability for your node to be on your internal network, and then you have the ability for other nodes to find yours on the external network. So meaning like the open internet. You have like your Wi-Fi at home. That would be like your intranet, and then you have the internet outside of there. So I think what he's talking about is just opening a port on your router, so that way you can imagine every network comes with a firewall. It's almost like opening a Bitcoin port so that it allows traffic through your network to that node for relaying, again, just like blocks or transactions or different pieces of the Bitcoin ledger across the network. I believe that's what he's talking about, is opening that port on your router. I believe by default, every node is a listening node that by default, I think those settings are already in there. But
okay,
opening a port on your router allows you to receive those incoming connections.
Okay, so that's a good thing, and that's why Mechanics suggests that.
I think one of the best things to mention here, we talked about the node, the Bitcoin node really serving a purpose, which is to store the ledger. We said that's about 800 gigabytes. So we said it's any computer. It's more of a similarly specialized computer, because my phone doesn't have a terabyte of storage. So I can't store a blockchain, an 800 gigabyte blockchain on like a phone. Yes, I can run Bitcoin on any computer. A phone is a computer, but it's a little different than that, because you're going to need that amount of storage. Another thing you're going to need is it to be online all the time. It needs to be connected and online constantly. It's almost like running a little miniature server. So the reason it needs to stay online all the time is because the second purpose of the node is to relay transactions. So when I submit a transaction, that gets relayed around the network on a good faith basis. So whatever nodes mine is connected to, it will reach out and it will relay that transaction across space and time, across the internet. So it lands inside of a certain amount of space delegated by the RAM for the mempool or your mempool to live. And so that's where that actually takes place, and that's
Okay.
where it's how Bitcoin moves. It wouldn't be able to move without the nodes and without those transactions relaying.
Yeah. So in the grand scheme of the entire network, which is kind of like, I look at it like a three-legged stool. Like you have the miners, you have the nodes, and you have I want to say the people and the exchanges.
The
Uh,
UTXOs. So that's
the
a good time to kind
UTXs.
of bring that up, is to say
Okay.
that you have the UTXOs, which is the record of inputs and outputs for a transaction. So every transaction has inputs and it has outputs, and those are recorded in the UTXO set.
Right.
That's what part of that ledger is, because every Bitcoin has a previous spent output. So the UTXO, that actually stands for the unspent transaction output. So it's the Bitcoin that's left over after a
Okay.
transaction is moved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. So our goal here today was to talk about nodes, relays, and VPNs. Now, I've been learning a lot from you about VPNs and privacy and some of those things. But one of the things I haven't learned enough about yet is the relays. Um, would you mind if we segue into that part of the conversation real quick?
Yeah, I think so. I could probably talk about it a little bit. Again, I don't code like all day, every day. And I don't know this like in the back of my hand, but I could definitely talk about relays from a high level. So, oh, I lost you.
Sorry,
It's okay.
I've enjoying the coffee. I forgot the mute button.
Oh, he did.
Um,
He muted for it. I appreciate that.
I try to be respectful. I'm not always that good, but I try. Uh, so you know, the audience here, we're really trying to reach a lot of people who are non-technical, who are very commonsensical, been around a long time, saw the birth of the internet, but are not really into like Bitcoin and like relays and nodes and all this stuff is kind of like floating around in there in the soup. So just from a high level, just cover relays for us. It doesn't have to be anything special.
I think that I could probably start with like when you post to Facebook, you are posting to one big giant server. And then that server is responsible for dishing out your content all over the place. That's kind of similar to how you can think about the opposite of posting a transaction to Bitcoin, because it's not one big centralized server. It is a plethora of servers across the world that all have to agree at the same time every 10 minutes that that is a valid post. And that's been Bitcoin since its inception, is it's deciding on whether or not transactions are valid. And that's the function of a relay, or of a gossip network, is what that's called.
Okay.
That's the function of it, is that they share this information. Hey, I think this one's good. I'll share it with my next person. Hey, I think this one's good. I'll share it with the next person. Hey, I think this one's good. It just continues and continues until everyone necessarily knows about that transaction. And then it can be confirmed in the block. And that's how Bitcoin moves. It doesn't move until it's confirmed. So that's
Correct.
the big thing, is people are so used to Venmo, which is like, what's your address? And I'll type it in and I hit send and it's right to you in 4 seconds. And it's like, that's a giant server. That's posting to Facebook. So that's not similar to Bitcoin at all, or relays at all. I think that kind of shows the difference there, but go ahead. Sorry.
So that is the Facebook example is example of a centralized server, right? And Bitcoin is an example of a decentralized, very local, regional thing, right? at first that confirmation, but the relays, are relays part of nodes? Is that just another function of a node, or is it a different separate thing?
No, it's a function of a node. It can't actually perform any transactions without relaying transactions. So that's how it receives transactions information in order to put those in a block. So it has to reach the network and ask. If it doesn't know about a transaction and one gets included in a block, it has to go out and ask, hey, what is this transaction? What, where did it come from? Is it valid? And then can make that discernment.
So they're really not considered they're considered nodes, and they have the function of relaying valid information.
Yeah, they relay transactions. That's like their function is what they mainly do. And then the storage part of it is the, keeping the blockchain intact locally.
Okay. Yeah, so it's, I think you said 800 gigabytes for the entire blockchain? Okay. So
And
not
rising,
your
always rising every day.
yeah, and it's getting a little bit bigger every day, right? So not your average computer that can really store the entire blockchain. Is that fair or
So okay, let's think of like the average computer buyer. The average computer buyer is typically going to Walmart and they're going to buy something that's middle range, something that's not $120, but not $1,000. So something around five for $600. Okay, so that's a middle range computer. You're probably going to land on like a 256 gigabyte hard drive. It's not going to be enough to store the whole blockchain, but it's plenty to store enough photos and videos for about 2 years. So then you think of your power user. Okay, well, your power user might be going out and buying like a desktop computer that has a little bit more like RAM or a little bit more storage in it so that it can store things. But still, to get up to that terabyte size, that's enough to store maybe your operating system. If you're using a Mac or Windows, it's enough to store that and then the blockchain. That's about it.
okay.
So you need 2 terabyte. You need something that's at least 2 terabytes, I would say, at this point in time, because Bitcoin is very close to moving past that 1 terabyte mark. And
Okay.
when it does, it's going to completely topple all of those computers that are running 1 terabyte machines, or 1 terabyte hard drives. So I would say a computer with a 2 terabyte hard drive is probably a minimum. And then probably a computer with at least a 4-core CPU. And those are basic specs that whenever you're looking at a computer, you're looking at these kinds of things. How many cores does the CPU have? How much RAM does it have? And then what type of hard drive or how big is its hard drive? Now, it's important to mention you don't have to store this all on like your local internal hard drive. You can store this on like an external hard drive, but it just comes down to how you want to use it, where you're going to store it. You remember, it has to stay on 24 hours a day. So leaving a laptop with the screen on full brightness probably isn't smart. You should think through how you want to do it. But when you start, you also don't have to download the whole 800 gigabytes of the blockchain. You can actually start with a lot less. You can start with as small as I think like 1 gigabyte. And you can just download that little tiny chunk of the network, and it'll allow you to submit transactions. And that's with a pruned node.
Okay.
I believe you do still have to download quite a bit of content before you have to download more than 1 gigabyte before you get that compressed version.
Okay.
But that's a getting in the weeds. I mean, prune nodes is something that I don't think is something you want to do when you're starting out.
Yeah.
Even though it might be a lower requirement, it's like, oh, I can do this because I don't need a 2 terabyte hard drive. Probably don't do that because you're just going to confuse yourself in the long run.
Well, what we've talked about on this channel before, I'm not sure if you've ever seen that. I've talked with Jor, I've talked with some other people about nodes and running, being part of the decentralization of the Bitcoin network. That is, I've encouraged people to get a Start 9 hardware that runs the Start9 software on it. But as an option, they could also run the Start9 operating system on another computer as well. So that is something that I think could be uh, could be done. That's something that I have chosen to do, and I really enjoy running a node on a piece of hardware like that because it's like a server. It just sits over there. It does its job. I don't have a screen to look at that specifically on that machine. I have access to it via my laptop or my other desktop, and I can see my own mempool that I'm running on my node, thanks to you. You've helped me learn how to do that. So, um, uh,
It's not without trial and error. I mean, it's whenever I got my first node, it was like a Raspberry Pi. So I said like that credit card size computer. It's about no bigger than your hand. And I plugged it in and I downloaded the blockchain and I had no idea what else to do with it. I was like, cool, I have Bitcoin, and that's it. Like I didn't actually have any Bitcoin yet. Like actually, I just had like the blockchain, and I was like, okay.
mhm.
So then over the years, just slowly figured out exactly what it does and how it works. It's
Well,
been nice.
we say a lot of times that if we have Bitcoin, that doesn't mean that we are Bitcoiners necessarily, because if we don't know how to transact in Bitcoin, do we really understand? And I would argue that many people who have Bitcoin don't really yet understand it because they're not doing transactions. They're not having to move it. And my experience is that once, and I've heard this before this ever happened to me, once we move Bitcoin, it's like a whole nother like, aha, I do understand how this works. Audio wise, I'm getting an echo. This is, um, let me see if I can adjust something here real quick. Make adjustments. I'm gonna try doing this. Okay, got any suggestions on that? Probably
Um,
not. Okay.
on Echo.
Yeah, I got an echo. Hmm,
Um, I tried switching an input, so hopefully that helps for you. I'm not sure if it will.
okay. I think I can survive through this.
Is your audio coming out somewhere through your room? Is that why? Like, can you hear yourself? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, it is. And that solved it right there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Did that fix it?
Well, let's see.
I know what that feedback sound is like whenever you hear yourself, but it's like delayed. It's pretty distracting.
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I wanted to I noticed that we have, at least one viewer here. Um, I wanted to encourage anyone who's in the chat to, fire some questions away. I've got some more questions for Logan, but I wanted to open that up if anybody has any questions they wanna suggest. This is, it's a good time for us to acknowledge. I see Lisa in the chat. She is one of the queens of Bitcoin that I know of. So welcome, Lisa. Uh, I can't even get her name right the second time. Letha. All right. Now, are you ready to move on? Do you have anything else you want to add, Logan, on that?
Um,
Or to the nodes part? The nodes or the relays?
To the nodes part, I would just say that all of this is built on your hardware. It's built on your internet connection. It's built in your home with the, with computers you touch. The reason I say that is because if it's built on someone else's computer, it's not yours, it's someone else's. A lot of people that I've seen have built these kinds of things, but they build them like on a cloud server, which again, is kind of advanced for even like me myself, but like it's much better to just do this you're like on your own. So that way you have the ability to like work with computers, work with software. It gives you that really good foundation. Um,
Okay.
and and if you're too nervous to do it with Bitcoin, I would say probably start with Nostr and mess around there.
Okay. Well, that kind of segues into the next part of what we want to talk about here. And I think, since we're talking about nodes, relays, and VPNs, um, bringing up Nostr is a good time to do that. So let's define Nostr. For people who don't know what Nostr is, currently in its current form, I think people understand it as a social media platform, even though it's not a platform; it's a protocol, right? And there is a difference between a platform and a protocol. A platform is like a centralized, siloed company, if you will, like Facebook or X, something like that. Whereas Nostr is more like a protocol, more like kind of like an internet protocol. Am I right? Am I
Yeah, I
close?
would say, yeah, you're very close. I would say that platforms are more like places that exist because someone stood them up, and they're, even though they might be widely accepted, they're still owned and stood up by another entity that can take it down at any point because they stood it up. So a protocol is more an agreed upon set of rules that people who use the protocol choose to follow for whatever reason. And so I would say with Nostr, and similar to Bitcoin, they're both protocols. They're both just a standard set of rules that people choose to follow to communicate financially or communicate independently. I would say that they both do similar things. We talked about the relay element of Bitcoin nodes. The relay element of Nostr is how it exists. That without relays, you wouldn't have Nostr. And so that's
Okay.
how they connect.
Um, I want to take a time real quick here, and I want to answer Letha's question. She has a
Sure.
question. Her question is there a reason to run more than one Bitcoin node? Good question, Letha.
Um, a reason to run more than one. I would say to have practice on different platforms, because it's different to run Bitcoin on a Mac versus Linux. It's different to run Bitcoin on some versions of Linux versus other versions of Linux. And knowing how those work, and how to install each one of them or build from source, whether you're downloading, Bitcoin Nuts or Bitcoin Core, or you're downloading the source code and you're compiling the Bitcoin code from source. It's important to know all the different variations. You end up at the same final product, which is a Bitcoin node that can relay transactions and stores the blockchain. But the way you get there is a little different. And so I think that is a good reason to run more than one node. But on a technical level, I would say that running one node just lets you have a backup. So if you have a
Mm,
machine go down and you're like, oh crap, my node just died, I need to submit this transaction anonymously, then you have another one to stand up pretty quickly. Um, it really is cumbersome if you have a node go down and then you have to re-download an 800 gigabyte blockchain and it takes 6 days to download on a slow internet connection, or like 9 days to download. So that's what I would say is like a positive to running more than one node.
Okay, so this brings up a couple questions, but first I would say before we go any further, and that is that we need to back up our nodes. There's many people who do not have, including me currently, have not backed up my node. I know, shame on me, right?
I'll try
I've
not
got
to
to
shake
do
my
that.
head.
And we have talked about that. I need to do it like yesterday, last month. But
So one of the ways that you can back up your node on Start 9, we'll talk about after this, but it's just to back it up over your network, to have a network folder and connect your Start 9 to that folder and then back up to that. So you think about it kind of like a flash drive, but it lives on another computer. That's where that backup would live.
okay.
So
So you need to have a way to do that.
when it comes to other nodes, again, that's why it's really important to run those implementations. Maybe that's a third reason to kind of answer Letha a little bit more. It's like, because you could run Start 9 and have an idea on how Bitcoin works on Start 9, but it's Dockerized or it's containerized or something like that. So then you might need to know how to run it on my node, or you might need to figure out how to run it on Umbrel. And all those look and feel a little bit different. So it's really good to just have that basic understanding and just keep building on that.
Okay. Another question about reasons to run a node, then my other question would be, if a centralized entity decided to pour a lot of money into running nodes and they had a lot of nodes, could they overpower the Bitcoin network by making choices that were contrary to, let's say, the interests of the people who want to use it as a monetary network?
Trying to shorten and think through your question a little bit of what it entails.
Is
So
that, I mean, did I come across well
I
enough, or
think
was I
so.
too? Okay.
I think so. Are we past that question on screen? Is the reason to run? Good deal.
Well, I think,
Sorry, I was trying to think through that question too, because I didn't really understand the whole context of it.
oh, of my question or her question?
Yours, sorry.
Okay. We can circle back to her. I think she says she's thankful.
Oh, good deal. No,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to make sure. No, but you were asking, could a majority of miners that are like incentivized otherwise to not relay transactions or something like that? What was your question exactly?
Well, just generally speaking, um, if any entity who was maybe considered a bad actor wanted to, for whatever reason, kind of overpower or take over sort of the Bitcoin network by running hundreds or thousands of nodes, could they do so by
I think by
doing that?
overpower you mean rewrite the blockchain. Is that what you mean by overpower? To like overtake the ability to write in blocks?
No, let's keep it more simple. I'm thinking more along the lines of like let's just take the current disagreement, if you will, the situation that we have with the op return situation, and you
Okay.
have people who are on the one side say that filters don't work, and you have people on the other side that say, we want to use this as a monetary network. We want the filters there because we don't want a bunch of JPEGs and a bunch of extra stuff that's not financial transaction, peer-to-peer transactions and stuff in the blockchain. We don't want that. So if you had a bad actor, let's say, who wanted to come in and say, and of course, I have sort of made my choices. You had what I would call a bad actor come in and say, we're going to force this by You see where I'm going with this.
I see where you're going with it. I think what it comes down to is the Bitcoin currently has two filters, not just one. It has two. One of them is a centralized authority like Mara, not being able to include crap in their blocks that they think is crap.
Okay.
That's one filter. The other filter is an 80 byte limit on op return. That's the other filter. So there's technically two. That's what's bothersome about this. The other side of the coin is, okay, we are going to update our software so that users of our software can't change parameters later down the line. That's what they've said. So that's what deprecated means. It means that later down the line, our users will not be able to change this function. So I think that what's going to occur is you're going to see one of the filters come away. The filter that's going to come away is the filter that Mara was offering, which is to say no to stuff, to just say no to putting it in the chain, because at the consensus level, you can totally put 100 kilobyte op return in the chain. You could totally throw it in there, like full scale 100 kilobyte file. But the relaying of that transaction is where it stops. That's where the buck stops, right? That's what they say, I think. Because if your mempool, you're running knots, so if your mempool sees a transaction come through over the gossip network that is the last node said, hey, yeah, this is cool, I'm going to send it to you, and sends it to you, and it's a 50,000 kilobyte op return, whenever before it was 80 and now it's 50,000. It's like, nope, this ain't real. And it pitches it off to the side. It doesn't send it to the next person, right? It doesn't relay it. It sits it in cache, and it doesn't continue to propagate. It doesn't continue to go. So I think it's very odd. Okay, here I think final take is like, I think it's very odd that you have people pushing for an update that is going to allow the removal of a filter, and also the removal of the Mara filter, and then also are saying that filters don't work, and are pushing that even further on the second front, and saying not only are we going to go around Mara, but we're also our biggest miners that are connected to nodes, and has like block stream, like the I don't know, slipstream, is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. Where they can basically, a giant miner can put whatever transaction they want in their mempool, and if it's some giant op return, they mine the block. They can put that in there if they want to. At the consensus level, you're allowed to do that, but it's not. It's gonna be filtered by Mara if it's something negative and illegal. So I think it's also gonna be filtered if it's malware, and gets implanted as like a text file. So you have people wanting to remove elements of Bitcoin that have kept it sane. I don't know how like you see obvious signs of like projects that have failed because of arbitrary data, and then you are just like oblivious to like this whole thing, like we're going to blow out op return and we're going to allow you to store 1,000 kilobytes worth of my data. Like, no, I'm not.
Well, it's kind of interesting.
At the very least, I'm not going to tell my neighbor about it. At the very least, I'm not going to tell my neighbor about it. So whatever.
It's not my reading of the situation is that also, and I want to keep this sort of like light, because I don't want to get too deep into the rabbit hole about this situation.
Well, I think it's important.
Of people who are not really aware of the depth of this.
Yeah, you're
right. But it does, in a sense, it is related to running nodes, and why wouldn't I want to run more than one node? Or is there a good reason to run more than one node? So if we kind of have to stay high level a little bit, you know what I mean?
Total. I think another reason that we're talking about this is because we just talked about how that blockchain is 800 gigabytes in size. If we're relaying if we're going to change the code and say, okay, we're not going to relay 80 bytes of random data around, we're going to relay, 100x that. It's going to change things. It's really going to change things. And not only is it going to change things for somebody that is like not wanting to relay this kind of stuff, which is what we've spent the last 5 minutes talking about, but it's also going to change things for someone who holds that blockchain data. It's going to increase the size of that data that they're holding, because each block basically, okay, no, it's not. Wait, I got to back up. This is where I was actually incorrect. Yes, I'm sorry. I have to back up here. Each block can be no bigger than 4 megabytes. Each block can be no bigger than 4 megabytes. So technically, it does not increase the amount of storage that your node's going to hold. That 800 gigabytes is still going to increase at a normal rate. What actually happens, though, is that it starts to scale the block differently, where 100% of the block was being filled with transactional data, real monetary network data. As you start to fill the block up with crap, you have to lose out on monetary data. So it makes it more difficult for people to move Bitcoin. Like, quite literally, it makes it more difficult, more costly for people to move Bitcoin, because you're now competing against JPEG.
Okay. So I think we've on this way, I think we've gone far enough on the transactional part of nodes and relays. Let's move in, because I'm trying to stay on the top of the
Oh yeah, I get
of
you.
all these topics. Let's go into a little bit, if you're okay with moving on. And are you okay on time, by the way?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. VPNs. We have been, you and I have been talking a lot about VPNs, and let's move into that discussion just a little bit about, like, what would you want us to know about VPNs? I mean, like, anything regarding privacy, kind of like, and how that can be done in your own, like, sovereign, computing world at your house.
I am still kind of exploring this myself a little bit. It's something that I really dug deep into at the beginning of the year, and I've sunk my teeth into it just very heavily to the point where I've had a lot of too much fun. With VPNs, there's multiple ways you can look at them. So VPNs can be something that allows you to port your traffic and make it look like you're in another location. VPNs can also serve the function of talking to other computers within a network. So they both do that in a nutshell, but they can serve different functions. And so a VPN can allow you to begin to use the internet in a way that is more private. You don't necessarily okay, so we have to do like some like internet basics 101 to really jump into the networking of that side of it, because whenever you go to your phone, you type in google.com and you hit enter, your computer is making a request to a server, and that server is typically ran by your internet service provider. So if you have Comcast, it's going to Comcast servers and it's saying, hey, where's google.com? And it's going to reply back and go, it might be here. And then you go there and you say, hey, where's google.com? And it goes, I think it's here, but you got to verify. And so it sends you 2 little chunks. And so you're like, okay. And this is like every time you type google.com, it does this in a split second. Then it goes to what's called a recursive DNS server. And that recursive server goes, yes, that's google.com. Here's how I can verify it. And then sends it back to the phone. And that's how you receive google.com. Think about it almost like a phone call. And you call somebody and it's, yes, I'll transfer you. Yes, I'll transfer you. Here it is. So that way you can find what you're looking for on the internet. When you do that, like I said, just on like, your Comcast internet, you are just telling Comcast everything you want to know. You're telling it your IP address. You're telling it where you are. You're telling it that you want google.com. You're telling it that you have this token that you are going to log in with google.com. everything goes through them and can be recorded and tracked and logged. And that's how a lot of this gets propagated. What you can do with a VPN is you can override this this lookup. It's what it's called. It's a DNS lookup. You can override this and ask yourself, where's this website? And then reply to yourself, hey, it's right here. And then ask yourself, hey, where's this website? Oh, it's right here. And so the way you do that is with a couple different applications installed on some hardware in your home. But you can create a way for you to have a private tunnel so that whenever you go to your phone and you type in google.com, even if you're on AT&T or Verizon or whatever, you're private tunneling from your phone to your home and asking your computer at your home, hey, where is google.com? And then it's replying, it's right here. And all of that can be secure and private. So that way you stop a lot of the ads and stop a lot of the tracking that goes on the internet.
Okay, so one question before you go any further, and that is with new I don't know, phones that have AI in them, like iPhone 16 or something like that. Are some of these things that you were talking about here, are they gonna be able to bypass those things that we set up, like a VPN or, some a private network at our house?
The best way to turn off Apple Intelligence on your phone is to go in and turn it off.
Well,
I mean, I would say that if you're worried about that, number two is all of the internet traffic, all of the requests that my phone is making or that my computer's making are going through this private tunnel to my own request service. And so no traffic is going external, if that makes sense. So
okay.
Even though it would reach out, if I kept Apple Intelligence on or whatnot and reached out to Apple and used the function, yes, it's still going to have that internet traffic as well. But the initial request is all private. It's through me. So, or it's in your own domain.
Well, so I think, well, I'm just trying to, see if there's any more questions in the chat, or if you have anything else you want to add regarding a VPN or anything like that.
VPNs are pretty high level. I mean, if you're running a VPN, you really need to know the reason why. I explained kind of one use case that I'm still kind of testing and exploring. But it requires a good bit of infrastructure, like at your home, like a couple computers to run something like this, or at least a small, powerful computer to run something like this. But I would say with VPNs, it's just important to know why you run it, and then continue to if you need.
Okay, so let's just
any privacy.
that for a second. Like let's say somebody wants to run a there's a popular one. There's several popular ones, but let's just say you want to run one that's a software that somebody else has that you pay a subscription for. What is the downside of doing that?
I think the downside of doing that is that, again, you're just using someone else's server, so you're trusting that they're not logging anything of yours on their end. And it really just comes down to what the purpose of the VPN is. So, like, if you need to obfuscate some of your internet traffic, it's probably good to have one of those around. You can have more than one VPN installed, so you can turn one off and turn one on, and that'll help just decide on like what the purpose of which VPN is.
Okay.
And by the way, VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. So it's just it's a network within a network. So if you're on the open internet, you can still access different devices within that local infrastructure. So it's a little bit advanced in networking. It's not something you need for Bitcoin. It's not something you need for Nostr. But it is a really fun thing to add to your network stack or like your tech stack if it's something that you're ready to do and become more sovereign with your internet.
Okay. So on another episode, we'd like to discuss Nostr in more depth. I would also like to discuss running a Noster relay in more depth. I would also like to discuss this concept of like privacy and running your own node at home to and the things that you can do on those. Um, but that's for another day, and it's definitely not. It's pretty deep down the rabbit hole. It's definitely not high level, for the non-technical folks. Um, Anything else you'd like to kind of add to our discussion, either on the nodes themselves, the different discussions that we might be hearing about, the importance and the different agendas on that topic, or relays, that portion of it, or VPNs, just kind of like cover whatever you want.
Okay. I think that like I said, the best way to get involved with like running a relay is to get started running a Noster relay and just messing up and deleting it, having fun with it.
Okay.
The best one that I found is called Haven. And so if you just search Noster Haven relay on Google, it should come up. It's a GitHub project. You can look through there and get that figured out. And then the last thing I'd say is I'm working on some content for stuff like this, so that if people need help with Noster or getting a relay stood up or whatever they'd like to do, that they can do that. So they can check that out at btcforplebs.com.
Yeah, let's on that note, I'm going to share your page if I could. Is that okay if I do that?
Sure, totally.
Also, I want to say we've got another question in the chat we're going to cover.
Nice.
And I am going to share this page right here. Let's see if I can do this without. All right. So, Logan, kind of walk us through this, what we've got, what we're looking at here. All right. This is our landing page.
Oh, yeah. So this is btcforplebs.com. So if you click on Learn About Bitcoin up there at the top, then you can go to select a topic, and you can drop down and see all the different topics. Oh, right at the top there, little drop down, select a topic. There's a little drop down. Yep. And then that will show you all the different topics that we have some small language for.
Okay.
And then as well as the, sorry, I think it's freezing up a little bit on my end.
Okay.
But yeah, there's some different topics on there, working on videos for each of the different elements of Bitcoin. And then if you go back, there's also a section for Learn Noster. I think there's only one video in there right now, but just getting that up and going. And so, last part at the bottom on the homepage is a live stream that I was running at the beginning of the year. I had to stop it because my computer almost blew up. Because I was running a 24/7 live stream with just Bitcoin's price. And that's at the bottom of the homepage. That's about all the website is right now on the homepage.
Oh, am I not on the homepage?
You are under Learn. You're under Learn Bitcoin.
Oh, sorry.
That's good. Just click the logo at the top in the middle. There you go. And then where it says watch right down at the bottom, it's a broken page right now, but that's where the live stream would be placed when I get it up. And so, that's btcforplebs.com.
Okay. Under construction. That's okay. We are early. Well, anything else you want to discuss regarding anything else besides what you're working on?
I think one of the things we talked about in the beginning of the show was that we wanted to talk through Bitcoin nodes, but then the difference between that and Lightning nodes. And we didn't really touch there too far. And that's probably a whole different rabbit hole that we could jump down at some point, where I'm really glad we spent the first 30 minutes talking through what the purpose of the layer 1 Bitcoin node is. And so I'm glad we didn't jump to Lightning. We don't need to go there yet. And
okay.
Did you say there
Okay.
was one more question or no?
Yeah, we do. We do.
Okay.
Buck 52,000 has got a question. He says, if you run a node, aren't you opening a gateway into your home network?
No. So if you run a node, you do not open a gateway into your home network. It is still behind a firewall, and it can still be reached by other nodes, but it is not opened by. It's not just opening a port whenever you run a node. That's a separate action. Is running like opening a port on your router is a separate thing entirely.
Okay. So running a node is different than and I confused myself there. Can you restate that again just so that I don't confuse myself?
Yeah, running a node on your network doesn't mean that you're opening a port on your network. It just means that it can relay transactions across the Bitcoin network.
Okay.
And so it doesn't necessarily open you up to anything. Opening a port on your router is a separate action altogether, is what I was saying.
Okay. So there's no concern about opening a gateway or a backdoor onto your home network by doing that.
By doing that, exactly.
Okay. But there's probably some steps that you could take for your home network to make sure that it's protected.
The majority of routers already come with ports completely locked down, so that no traffic can come in without deliberate access. And so, your node can still relay transactions perfectly fine just across the open internet, across IPv4. And so it's not opening any ports to your computer unless you deliberately choose to do that.
Okay.
And
Yeah, that's
so
fair. I hope
I've
that
never had the question asked that way, so I hope that that's a good enough answer. But thank you for asking it, because it does help me get better at answering something like that when people ask it. So that's good.
yeah. Excellent. Buck 52,000. Good job. You were stumping Logan there for a second.
I'm gonna go scream at ChatGPT for 2 hours now and get the right answer.
Well, he's thankful too. So, some of these folks that I've met on, in this living in the future community are just amazing. Letha, thanks for being here. Buck 52,000, y'all are just amazing. And I know there's a lot of other ones that will probably see this or possibly see this later. So, anyway, thankful for you all. Uh, Logan, it's been great. Anything else? I would just say, if you wanna check out Logan's stuff, he's at btcforplebs.com, and that's with a 4 FOR. He's he's all over Nostr. He's on Nostr all the time. Uh, Logan, do you have an NPub that you wanna, like, share so people can follow you on Nostr too? Would you be
Yeah,
willing to share that with me so I can put that in the chat?
yeah. If you get any Nostr client and you just search Logen, I'm the one holding the camera.
Right here
So
on his
any Nostr
name in the
client.
lower left. He's
So,
Logen on Nostr.
um, so what I'm gonna do now that you said that is I'm going to set up a forward on my website. So logan.btcforplebs.com goes to my NPub. That's a smart idea.
Yeah,
You're onto
throwing you
something.
under the bus.
Oh,
You
no, wait,
know,
I can't do that. I can't
you
do that because that goes to my relay. If you go to logan.btcforplebs.com, that's my relay for my Nostr account. So I got to figure something else out. But
it is. And I have learned, you know, I will let me share this with the audience. I met Logan through our Bitcoin meetup. Okay. And so this is something that when we say about, knowing people online is one level of knowing Bitcoiners, but meeting people at a meetup somewhere, it can be very fruitful too. And we've shared coffee a couple times. We will be sharing coffee, maybe breaking some bread, hopefully many more times.
oh no, my
And
camera died.
uh-oh.
I'll grab a battery. Keep
Maybe
talking. Keep
it's
talking.
time
I'll grab
for
a
us to
battery.
cut bait. Let's go home.
No, here it's coming. It's coming. Keep going.
No, but can't ever underestimate who is in Bitcoin. What you're going to learn from these folks that you meet, right? I mean, we're learning that it's a network, but not just in the small communities that we're finding, right? There's lots of Bitcoiners out there. There's uh, a lot of good people that you find in Bitcoin that are in Bitcoin for the right reasons. They're not there to try to trade or churn or anything like that. And I just think I really would love to know what that Chinese writing on the top is. There's no signal.
Listen, I don't have the money for these really expensive little dongles. Okay, I get the cheap dongles that I can find. Okay,
For sure. So, any other questions at all? Anything at all? We're into this for like 60 minutes now, and I'm thankful for you, Logan. I'm thankful for the audience. Uh, like if you ever have a question on like what you should run in terms of software for your Bitcoin software, let it be known.
28.1. Yeah, let it be known. 28.1.
Yeah,
Forever. Forever. Run 28.1 or 29. Sorry, 29.1.
I will tell you. Now, let me just say this for everybody's benefit. This is a Bitcoin Knots guy right here. He was telling me Bitcoin Knots from like the first day I met him. He was like, "You got to run Bitcoin Knots. You know Knots, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in that conversation. Apparently, that's the big deal." So don't let it fool you. Ah, I'm glad to see your face again. I'm glad you got your technical issues handled, and we're gonna wrap. So thank you again, Logan. It's been great. Thanks everybody. We're gonna have a great rest of your day, and we're gonna keep firing good content your way. All right, from Bitcoin Generations. We'll see you.